Okay, so what will the ad and marketing industry look like in a more sustainable world? I think that's a really tough question because, I mean, after all, let's face it, does advertising and marketing even have much of a place in a more sustainable world? I think to answer this question, people in the industry, they have to imagine what a more sustainable future might look like, and then try and create that future. It's the only way it's going to happen. And after all, humans have been really good at doing this throughout history. That's why we've been so successful, I think, until this point, this ability to imagine a future and then create it. And this is about creativity. So in the 20th century, we thought we had it all sussed out. We thought we were going along perfectly. And now we realize we have some big problems, some major problems. And we're pretty much still ignoring them. So what are these problems that we're facing? And what does sustainability actually mean? What does it mean that we should be working towards here? It's a buzzword that's bandied around all over the place and in marketing as well. But what does it actually mean? Well, I think to understand this, we have to go back in time quite a bit to the agricultural revolution, which farming, really, that's what it is. And so 10,000 years ago, they're estimated to be about only 10 million humans in the world, which is a far cry from now. And when that happened, our population started to expand. So by 2,000 years ago, there were 100 million people in the world. And then by the early 1800s, we had our first billion people. And then, this was before the Industrial Revolution, and then the Industrial Revolution happened, and our population started to explode. Until this year, it's estimated, well, it is going to happen, that there are going to be 7 billion people in the world. Sometime this year, it's about 6.9 at the moment, I think. And what's more, by 2050, which is less than 40 years away, we're going to be 9 billion people. And this is something that is going to happen. It's pretty much inevitable because it's less than 40 years away. So this population means that we've become the dominant species on Earth. And so this through our ability to imagine the future and work towards it, we've been this successful. And technology and trade have been big factors. I mean, look at the technology around us today. So our footprint on the Earth has become huge. So the question is, how can 9 billion people live sustainably on Earth? That's what sustainability really means to me, anyway. And this affected me this realization affected me so much that I've founded a website called The 9 Billion, which is going to ask this question daily, and hopefully with a lot of people's help to answer this question, because we don't really know, and we need to forge our way to do that. So 9 billion of us are going to have to live on this thing called the biosphere, which is this thin layer around the Earth. Seems big to us, but it's pretty thin, and with this web of things called biodiversity, all these living things, plants, air, water, soil, animals, atmosphere, life. And we can't live without it, and it has to be healthy. If it's not healthy, we're not going to survive ourselves. So the trouble with this is that biosphere isn't growing. It can't grow, it's a finite. We're growing incredibly, but this thing can't grow. So we've got to live within it, and we're growing infinitely, seem to be, and this thing is finite. And scientists have been telling us for decades that we have to take care of this thing called the biosphere for our very survival, but we are tending to ignore it. We're going on collectively ignoring it. So we're polluting it and destroying it at the moment. I mean, if you just look at the problems around at the moment, we've got climate change, which is huge. It's a showstopper. We've got air and water pollution that are destroying ecosystems. We're overfishing. There are growing dead zones in every ocean in the world. There's a floating island of plastic in the Pacific, bigger than Texas, that's not going away. There's massive deforestation. We've got massive species extinction. We've got threatened coral reefs. The list goes on and on and on. And this, folks, is not sustainable. The problem is that, part of the problem, I think, is that we don't see this in our daily lives, especially in the city. Say in Sydney, we might be stuck in traffic jams, commuting. We see a bit of smog. We see plastic when we go to the beach, a bit of plastic lying around. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal, even though I think we know that it is. The bit we do see and experience is our own consumption, consumerism. We're buying a lot of stuff, shiny stuff, iPads. I'm using one today. And there's a lot in the room. So the problem is, since World War II, we've had this incredible appetite for buying more and more stuff. We love to shop. We even do it recreationally. In our leisure time, we go shopping. And this has increased our footprint in the biosphere massively. If 7 billion people consumed like we do in Australia and in the US, we'd need more than one planet. We do already. And if you look at what's happening in China and India, people are becoming more affluent and they're consuming more there. So over the next decades, it's going to become even more of an issue. It's just not sustainable. So this consumption is the engine that drives our economic system as well, the system that we're working under. It's a top priority for businesses and government, this consumption. And so we've become a world of consumers. In the media, we talk of consumers and not people. And if you're working in advertising and marketing, I'm sure that you talk about consumers almost every day. I mean, I did when I was working in agencies. You talk about consumers, target audiences. That's the goal. So the system just didn't happen by accident. It was designed like this. It's a product of 20th century big thinking, but we're still using it in the 21st century. This is retail analyst and economist Victor Lebeau said this about in the 1950s, just after World War II, and this is stuck and it's with us today. We need things consumed, burned up, worn out, replaced and discarded at an ever-increasing pace. We need to have people eat, drink, dress, ride, live with ever more complicated and expensive consumption. So the upshot of this is that we're buying too much stuff. Collectively, we're buying a lot of stuff and we're throwing it away, and then we're buying more stuff. And the problem is there really is no away. We're throwing it back into the biosphere. And obviously the plastic island in the Pacific is a good example of this. It's done by accident. All those little bits of plastic get into the sea by accident. And they're not breaking down. If they are breaking down, they're turning into sort of a toxic soup that's changing the chemistry of the ocean that they're in. So how can we fix this? Is recycling the answer? Well, I don't think recycling is not enough. It's never going to be enough. It's said that for every one rubbish bag that we throw away, there are 60 rubbish bags created in the system, in the production of the products that we buy. So, it's having very, very little effect, even though we think it might be. So, unfortunately, buying a hybrid car, carrying a cloth bag, changing a few light bulbs and doing Earth Hour once a year is not going to be enough. We're in big poo. We're in much bigger poo than that. It's going to take a lot more than that. It's a serious problem. And so what's advertising and marketing? Where does it fit into the system? Well, you've heard that we're targeted with a few thousand ads a day now, much more than previous generations. And through ads, we don't see this whole system of the consequences. We just see the window of buying this shiny stuff. We're encouraged to desire this stuff, and we do, and we tend to ignore the problems. It's inconvenient to even think about it. Most of us don't think about it. We don't ask questions. And the economy and the advertising industry mostly ignore it. Of course it does. I mean, it's about producing, it's about selling this stuff. And so many people know the problems and how big they are, but and I didn't even know how serious the problem was until a few years ago, until I had an interest in it and decided to find out exactly what was going on. And the more you find out, the more you realize how serious it is, but how serious it actually is. So, and when we have a recession, we're actually told to consume more to get things going again. We're even given money to buy more stuff. So, it's part of the system. So that's the negative, and it's a pretty big negative. So what's the positive in all this? The positive that I think is that we can do something about it. We can create a more sustainable world if we choose to. And I think in terms of big thinking, it's the biggest challenge that we're going to have this century. There is no bigger challenge than this. And it's going to have to be, if we don't do it, it is a choice, but if we don't do it, we're going to be forced to do it by nature. Sooner or later we're going to be forced to, and it might be too late by that time. So sustainability is not a fad. I think it's already happening in the first 11 years of the century. We can already see it happening. There are people working on saving forests, creating cleaner production, of goods and services, fair trade, more conscious consuming, green chemistry, clean technology, zero waste, closed loop production processes, clean energy, more efficiency improvements, better water management, and local living economies, local living. These things are starting to happen, but they're just, it's a small percentage of people, and it's nowhere near big enough. So it's people trying to change the old throwaway mindset. It's not easy. I mean, I don't find it easy, and I'm sure you don't if you're trying to head down this path as well. The old way just didn't happen. It was designed to be like this. So I believe that advertising and marketing can actually help these ideas become popular and drive sustainability mainstream, because that's what's going to have to happen. And I think it can help. And so there has to be a paradigm shift from the old ways, away from selling as much unsustainable stuff as possible, as fast as possible, because that's what's still happening today. And that's a big change. It's a massive change to deal with. And we have, today media and advertising are already going through big changes. Newspapers and media companies are in crisis, and there's a new paradigm emerging there. And connectivity's got a lot to do with this. Through the internet in the last 20 years, we've seen big changes, and it's still happening. So people are connecting with like-minded people on the web around the world to try and make change happen with or without the government's help, usually without it. I mean, we're seeing this right now in the last week in Egypt and what's going on. People have connected through social media and mobilized, and even right now, say through, I've got family in Christchurch, and the way that I found out about what was going on in the first few hours was through social media. So the spread of information is really fast now, and we can move really fast if we want to, and we usually wait till crisis point to do that. So we have to start, what do we do about it? We have to start asking ourselves, what role can I play in this 21st century, this new way of thinking that's emerging? If you work in advertising, you have to say, what role can I play? What can I possibly play in this? And it's the biggest challenge for the years ahead, and I can't answer that question. I think everybody has to do it together. And we also ask, what can we do right now to change? Do we all have to be environmentalists? No. In fact, it would be better if there were no environmentalists eventually, if there was no need for it, but unfortunately there is. But we all have to take our own path, whether you're a mechanic in the media or whatever you do. You have to think about it and do it differently. It's too easy to be successful. Well, it's going down the old route, and I think history is going to judge people badly who go down that old route and don't change. It's going to be fundamentally different, and it's not going to be easy. And I think marketing and advertising might actually decline in its traditional form if we know when this happens, if it doesn't change. And just the companies that advertise are going to have to change too. They will change because customers will demand it as the years go on. They're going to demand it more and more. So advertising is going to be forced to change because companies are changing, and that's a good thing. It's going to be changed together. So we're talking about the big picture here, and these talks are about big thinking. Sustainability involves the biggest thinking we're going to have to do this century, and it needs to start right now. It is the biggest challenge that we've ever faced as a species. The situation might look bad right now. I've outlined how bad it looks, and I don't apologise for doing that. And hopefully it's not too late. Just as there have been big opportunities in the digital and internet revolutions before it that are still going on, I think this provides some big opportunities for those who go early and are willing to go down this different path. And so my final question to you today is, do you want to be involved, or do you want to be left behind?